Hi, all of you. Good afternoon. Now it's good evening. Am I audible to all of you? Am I audible to all of you? Am I streaming fine? Yes. Hi, Shivani. Hi, Shivani. Good evening. Okay, fine. So, welcome to our live discussion session on the YouTube. Today was the day for optional papers, and with this, the UPSC annual fest of the mains examination for the year is over. It's quite an event every year with as many aspirants giving the examination, starting with the language papers, essay papers, GS papers, and of course the optional. So first of all, before we start off the discussion, my wishes to all aspirants. I hope you all have done your work well. You must have put in efforts over the months. It's a cycle of almost a year because the preparation for the prelims starts from November, December onwards. You count your stint from December, and this is almost end of September. So that's good. Almost 9-10 months of continuous preparation for the examination. It's very exhausting, I know. It's very, very tiring. It's demanding. It's a roller coaster ride with lot of insecurity, uncertainty. But finally, okay, it's a cycle that one has to go through. So my wishes to all of you who all have prepared and given the examination, and all those who missed out in the examination because of maybe narrow marks, miss from the cutoff. I hope you all ultimately get a chance to appear in the coming year, 25 or 26. Avanish, Anjali, we have Vandana Jha, Shivali, Mohini, Surabhi, Aman, Valmiki, Jyoti. We have one NTV. I know about MTV, but we have NTV here. Okay, fine. So I presume you all have seen the question paper, the paper 1 and paper 2. Paper 2 just got over couple of minutes ago, around 5:30, and paper 1 was over earlier in the afternoon. I have shared some of my observations on the Telegram channel. If you all have seen the Telegram channel, geography and also the general one, which is Shabbir's Edukemy for IAS. In both the Telegram channels, I have given my brief analysis of what the question is, what type of theme is getting repeated, what type of current affairs they expect out of you in terms of applied answers. So I gave a brief idea about my observations. So fine, let us have a discussion. First, why don't you tell me, what do you think about the papers? You think the paper was approachable, difficult? What do you think? A lot of speculations around geography paper in general. So what is your observation of the paper? You think it was easy? It was, say, in a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? A scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? Yes, we will share the link of Telegram channel. We'll do that. If somebody who has the link can share, as of now I cannot. Moderately good paper. Now tell me separately for paper 1 and separately for paper 2. Paper 1 was moderately approachable. Okay, 1 to 6, 5, 8. No, what, 10 is easy or 1 is easy? What's your reading? 1 is, I'm saying if 1 is very easy and 10 is very difficult, so in 1 to 10, what is your rating? Paper 1 had straightforward questions, Rutu, okay. Paper 1 was easy to moderate. Paper 2 in linkages, yes, I agree. Paper 1 was approachable. Approachable is a difficult, nasty word. Tell me more objectively, what do you think? Paper 2 was 5, 1 was easy. Okay. Paper 1 was 5. Need some level of preparation. MJ, every year you need some level of preparation, not just this year. Yes, P-by-Q analysis would have helped a lot, correct. 5.56 out of 10, Satyam Dangi says. Okay, here is my reading here. Paper 1 was definitely much more, I'll say, it was easier. It was easier. Paper 1, I think, should have been range of 4, 5, 6 types. And paper 2 was on a bit tougher side. Tougher side because I think the applied questions were more. Having said that, if you are smart in your question selection, which questions are you attempting? If you smartly do that, even paper 2 is quite approachable one. Paper 1, 6 out of 10, okay. Mapping was tough, yes. Mapping was tough. Tough in the sense, look, in most years people attempt 6 to 7 entries. This year I think most will attempt maybe 4 or 5 entries. Yes, Arya, paper 2 was more current affairs based. Yes. 26. And you know, I always say this, rather than running around looking for more and more material, looking for more and more books to read, if you just stick with the class notes and the discussions that we have as a part of test series, that's good enough. That's good enough. Yes, Anjali, the mapping part, I think 3, 4 if you have done, that's fair enough. How did your papers go in general, Anjali? I think you are given the paper this year. If it is the same, Anjali, how did you perform in your mains, Anjali? Geography paper. Good evening, Khem Singh. How to tackle bouncers? So just leave it. You don't have to worry about all the bouncers. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one by one. Okay. So let's start off now. Let's start off. Can you all see my screen? Is my screen visible to all of you? It was fine? Okay, Anjali. Okay. So here we go. So the first question, go question by question. The first question, what are truncated spurs? Spur as a discussion, I have a quick discussion while I'm teaching Davis and Penk. So what happens is, in the mountains, these projections are called as spurs. These projections that we have, so this is a projection, a spur, projection, a spur. This is a spur. When a river moves, the river turns like this. It looks like a meandering river, but the river is essentially turning around these projections. But when there's a glacier, what happens is, the glacier is very powerful agent. The powerful agent, glacier will not turn like this. The glacier will straight away cut the projections. So these projections are cut. These projections are truncated. So what I will have now is, I'll have this mountain with a truncated spur. I will have this mountain with a truncated spur. I'll have this mountain with a truncated spur. And the glacier is moving like this. So wherever we have, the spurs have been cut. This projection is called as a spur. So when these projections are cut, okay, they are now then called as truncated spurs. So wherever we have truncated spurs, they are examples of glacial landscapes. I was anticipating that this year they will ask from glaciers. Okay, yes, we had not done truncated spurs specifically, but the landform, I am very sure it should have been asked. Okay, and I was anticipating this from glacier. It is very well given in your Goching Leong. If some of you have done Goching Leong landforms, the truncated spurs are very well mentioned in that. Okay, formation of temperate cyclones depend on the condition of axis of dilation. It's asking about how does the frontal development happen. So what happens is, if some of you understand this part here, this is an air mass. Look at my screen here, if you all can watch. Okay. Say this is an air mass. This is air mass 1. And I'm looking from top. This is air mass 2. Okay. And this is the axis along which the interaction happens. And this is the axis which is transverse. I'm looking from top. Okay, I'm looking from top. This axis can you all see my page, all of you? Can you all see my page? Yeah, okay, fine. So this is the axis. So this is an air mass, this is an air mass, and the two air mass interact. Now what happens is, the winds inside the air mass, what can happen is, rather than the winds directly coming and merging, the winds can spread like this. The winds can spread like this. The winds are coming here, the winds spread like this. The winds spread like this. So this line here, this is called as the axis of dilation. So until the winds don't spread, they come and join. If they come and mix here, then the interaction starts. But if the winds are turning like this, the interaction will not be very good. So this line is called as the axis of dilation. This is called as the axis of dilation. This is mentioned in the Savindra Singh textbook. Okay. So when the winds are moving along the axis like this is an example of a stationary front, where the winds are there, the air masses are face to face, but they don't move into one another. If they don't move into one another, there will be no frontal formation. And the front that's formed is called as a stationary front. This stationary front is a temporary condition. It doesn't last for a long time. Ultimately, the dilation, this spreading out, is called as dilation. The dilation will stop and the winds will merge and the frontal formation and the temperate cyclone starts happening. Okay, so this is one important point that you could have known. Okay, explain with suitable examples the factors causing sea level changes. There are 4 factors why sea level change happens. One factor is change in the basin size. Number 2 is relative rise or fall of the land. These 2 are tectonic factors. Okay, where the basin size can become small, the water will rise. The basin size becomes larger, the water will fall. If the land will sink down, relative rise of sea level. If the land uplifts, relative fall in sea level. Iske alawa, okay, there are two more factors. One is the thermal expansion, okay, where the water starts expanding because of heat. And the fourth one is because of melting glaciers, because of melting ice shelves. So this also is part of your discussions on sea level changes from oceanography. Okay, what are the examples of sea level? Say, sea level rise along the coast of submergence or the coast of emergence. And the sea level rise that we see today because of Arctic and the Antarctic melting. Yes, yes, it leads to positive and negative changes. So the factors causing sea level changes are tectonic factors and there are thermal factors. Thermal factors related to water expansion and thermal factors related to addition of water from melting ice shelves, ice sheets and glaciers. Examine the impact of social forestry on socio-economic transformation of rural areas. I think this was a pretty good question. Although in rural areas, you have to break up the social forestry into agroforestry also. One of the components of social forestry is agroforestry. And if you remember, some of you, I have discussed what are the advantages and merits of the minor forest produce. I do this in the class and I also added that as a part of your test series. So the importance of the minor forest produce is also part of social forestry. The lark industry, the importance of mahua collection, the importance of firewood, the importance of fruits. So even that's the important part here. Along with that, agroforestry as a part of land management. Okay, so I think this was a good question. Mountain regions are more fragile to ecological changes. Now, I love this question. This question was very much on the expected lines. We have problems of GLOF in Sikkim. We had problems of landslides in Himachal Pradesh, in Uttarakhand, in Kashmir, and we have also had landslides. We have had massive deforestation-related problems in Western Ghats. So a very comprehensive question. Okay, why are the mountain regions more fragile to ecological changes? Okay, because of slopes, because of the soft sediments, because mountains have heavier rainfall, because the mountains have hydrological changes impact faster. So yes, very nice. They are more fragile because of those factors. So question number 1, I think all the questions except for truncated spurs, maybe some of you were troubled by this one. All the other 4 questions were fairly doable. You could have missed. And every year they do ask one question, which is not easy one. So that's okay. It's on the expert lines. Yes, Mudit, I agree. The mountain regions are also vulnerable because of tourism. But here the question more is, why are they fragile to ecological changes? So ecological changes includes the slope modification, deforestation, the change of hydrology because of dams, because they have soft sediments. You can also add this as a part of tourism also. Yeah. Question number 2 was a must-do question. Okay, I think this was a very good question to answer, where all the 3 were answerable. Recent views of mountain building, straight away tectonics, and divide the mountains of the world on the basis of their genesis. Volcanic mountains, we have block mountains, we have escarpments, and we have fold mountains. 4 types of mountains with examples. I think it's a straight question, directly. Okay, anybody should have answered this question. A very good question answer. Describe the latitudinal distribution of Köppen's classification of the world climate. Excellent. Okay, what is A type of climate, C type of climate, D type of climate, E type of climate? And then what is the boundaries of isotherms in this, and then again how they're modified. Okay, so all the three questions. So question number 2, straight question, okay, on Köppen's classification. And this one, the bottom topography of Indian Ocean. I was expecting this because they repeatedly have asked Indian Atlantic Ocean and Pacific Ocean. They've asked, and Indian Ocean is an obvious one because current affairs may be a lot of discussions on Indian Ocean. So all the three questions are L1, which you should have answered. Let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3 also was a good question to answer. The first one, air masses and weather dynamics. Excellent. What are air masses? How they interact? The type of fronts, the cold front, the warm front, okay, and the occluded front, and how do air masses influence weather conditions of northern hemisphere? The impact of Siberian air mass on Central Asia, impact of the Canadian air mass on the lake effect, the impact of the Arctic air mass moving into parts of Europe, what it does. Okay, this is a very nice question. Okay, and a lot of things right on this. Question number 3b, soil erosion is a creeping death. So what are the problems of soil erosion? And suggest with conservation measures. Now, soil erosion as creeping death, you have to relate this with desertification. How extensive soil erosion can lead to loss of the topsoil and decline of the soil fertility. It impacts agriculture. It can lead to problems of food shortages and droughts. And talk about desertification, wherever we have dry conditions, heavy fallowing of land, problems of lack of crops or soil moisture is becoming limited, and explain the statement and suggest conservation measures of soils. So conservation measure is, okay, don't have monocropping, have high cropping intensity, there must be shelter belts, we must ensure soil mulching, okay, and plus wherever possible, we must also use organic fertilizers. So the organic fertilizers can bind the soil better. In the presence of chemical fertilizers and too much of soil salts addition, it can become a problematic issue for most of the areas of agriculture. So I think again, a pretty nice question to attempt. If you have been careful, you would have answered this one. The 3C, this is a surprise for me because this is a PYQ, this is a previous year repeat. Okay, this was such a surprise. Perception, attitude, value, emotion. This was asked in one of the earlier years. So essentially, the question has 3 parts to it. One is, the traditional model of environmental conservation relies more on laws, relies more on incentivizing the population in terms of the utility of environment conservation. It's more about there are economic benefits, more about there are environmental benefits. So we try to do environmental conservation in terms of talking about the utility of conservation, how conservation can help us in better biodiversity, conservation can help us in better income, conservation can help us in terms of better water management. That's one. This question says that conservation needs to work through behavioral changes. This is the behavioral psychological aspect of environmental conservation. So don't look at conservation solely in terms of enforcing laws, solely in terms of propaganda around importance in terms of economic importance. This is look at the cultural significance, talk about local participation, talk about involving the local tribes in conservation. So perception is about how we view things. Value is in terms of how we value things. And with the values and perceptions, there are emotions attached. Emotions attached in terms of local cultures, emotions attached in terms of local traditions, emotions attached in terms of local dependence. So when perceptions, values, and emotions are positive, they all will converge towards positive attitudes in conservation. तो आपको इसको behavioral geography से link करना था. Okay, and yes, it was a PYQ. Okay, so what happens is, otherwise, even if people know the conservation is important, the attitude towards conservation is not always favorable. Even if you know the importance of not wasting the water, even then the attitude is in general, we don't care much. The attitudes can change when issues of water, of forests, wildlife, you map those with cultural aspects and emotional aspects. Then you will realize that the environmental conservation becomes more and more effective. So go towards the behavioral aspects of conservation. I think this was a good question. So in the choice of question number 2 was a good question to answer, and question number 3 was a good question to answer. You have to pick up one of the remaining ones. Question number 4. I think question number 4 was a tricky question because most of you will not know what is the Yazoo stream. On the Telegram channel, I did mention what is the Yazoo stream. We shared the link of the Telegram channel. I'll suggest all of you can join that. Yazoo channel essentially is a stream that runs parallel to the main river for a long, long distance. It's like if this is the main river, okay, the Yazoo river runs parallel to the main river and then goes and joins the main river. This is the Yazoo stream. There is a river called as Yazoo River, okay, of river Mississippi. Okay, and this happens because between the main river and the tributary, there are depositional ridges called as levee. I think you all know what levee is, correct? So this is the valley here, this is the floodplain here. There are depositions on the margins. We call these as levee. So this is a ridge-like deposition here, and this is a floodplain. This is a ridge-like deposition here, and this is the floodplain. Okay. So what happens is the river runs parallel along this side here because this ridge is separating the river from the main river. So what happens is in floodplains, this levee is soft sediments. This can easily be breached. Then what happens? The water from the main river can start moving into the Yazoo and vice versa. So this area now becomes flood prone because the Yazoo is separated by the main river only because of this depositional feature. There is a river called as Tons, MJ. There's a river called as Tons. The Tons of the Ganga system is one of the tributaries. It goes and joins the Ganga system near Prayagraj, near Allahabad. Okay, and if you look at Indus River, this is your map of Ladakh. This is map of Ladakh here. Okay, and we have Indus River coming like this, and this is the Shyok River, goes and joins like this, Shyok River. Between the Shyok River and main Indus is the Ladakh range. So this might look like a Yazoo River, but is not a Yazoo River because this is a proper mountain range called Ladakh. It is not a levee of the river. The Shyok River is not a Yazoo stream. I am focusing on that. Tons River is an example of a Yazoo River. Tons is part of the Ganga system, one of the tributaries of Ganga Yamuna system. Okay, so maybe some of you did not know this, and I think this was a good question to ask. How is carbon neutrality essential for future environmental conservation? Carbon neutrality is about how we don't add any more extra carbon to the atmosphere. Whatever we are adding, we also are removing. So carbon neutrality is important for arresting global warming. Carbon neutrality is important as a part of even forest management. Carbon neutrality is part of reducing pollution of the environment. because carbon monoxide is a pollutant, methane is a pollutant, chlorofluorocarbons are pollutants. So if you can remove all of that, it's beneficial. And what steps have been taken by nations? Asking in relation to the Paris deal and the NDCs that we have signed. So various nations, what they have done, most of you would have struggled. But I hope you know India's commitment towards carbon neutrality. We're talking about 50% of our energy must be from renewable energy. We'll reduce our fossil fuel usage also considerably. We'll talk about compensatory forestry wherever possible. So those were the part of the NDC's objectives, solar energy and so on. So this was not an easy question, but it was doable. And this is a good one. The latitudinal gradient in species richness is asking us that as we move from equator towards the poles, the biodiversity in general reduces. Okay, so it's a very important aspect of geographic trend. Geographic trend is about locations. Okay, will we have the locations as the basis of biodiversity? When you move from equator towards the poles, the temperature changes. The rainfall will change. There is change in terms of the overall season's length. So all that impacts. Okay, so how does the change of biodiversity is important part of the gradient? So question number 4 was not an easy question, but it was doable if attempted. But my personal choice, you should have left question number 4. Hi Vaishnavi, good to hear from you. Hope you were able to solve the paper. Okay, I was pretty happy with the question papers applied and quite a few questions we have discussed. Okay, in the section B, the compulsory 5, all the 5 were doable. Very straight questions. Significance of behavioral approach in human geography. Behavioral approach challenges. It challenges QR. It brings in perception. Ultimately, the approach gave us new techniques of analysis like mental maps, behavioral matrix. Behavioral approach has been very applied in nature in terms of choices taken. It ultimately led to humanistic geography. It was growing into perceptions and geosophy. With behavioral geography, behavioral approach, man was brought back into geographical study. Otherwise, in QR, man was completely ignored. Okay, so behavioral approach was more anthropocentric compared to the QR. A very good question. This could have been answered very well. Now, water question, I think, is a standard question every year. Okay, I always predict this, कि water to pakka aane wala hai, no matter what. And even in our test series, we had given quite a few questions on water. Vaishnavi and Anjali, I hope both of you were able to manage these questions. Yeah, you did? Excellent. Okay. So, water scarcity, okay, are felt locally, but its causes are increasingly global. This is asking about how water problem is a consequence of global phenomena. So 4 things, global phenomena in terms of global warming is one. Second, water scarcity, because many of the source of the rivers are transboundary sources. Okay. Then talk about how rainfall is impacted because of jet streams getting slower, how El Nino also impacts. Talk about how the Arctic melting also impacts. So causes are global, as in the causes are not local. It's not about local rainfall. It's about jet streams. It's about Arctic conditions and Arctic amplification. It's about slowing down of the polar vortex. It's about El Nino and La Nina cycles. It is related to even problems of, sea level rise. Sea level rise is a very important reason why a lot of coastal water resources are being impacted. Okay, thanks Vaishnavi. I am glad you were able to do this. By the way, all of you are watching the session right now. If you have given your mains, I will be happy to come, if you can come and see me tomorrow. Okay, come and see me at around 10 o'clock in the office tomorrow. I will have a few things to discuss with all of you. All of you, if you can come over, I'll discuss. And of course, then you can go for a short break because it has been very, very tiring for all of you. At 10 o'clock in the morning, if you can come down, it will be very nice. Okay, this was an expected question. How CBDs are in decline. Yes, CBDs are declining as economic core because the cities are expanding, because the core CBDs are more traditional and now they have problems of congestion. The traditional CBDs are also old economies. They are not repeated ones. They're old economies. The traditional CBDs are also not enough to link the economy of the peripheral areas. As there is suburban expansion, the outlying CBDs become more and more important. There are, expansion of suburbs. The CBDs there become more important. So a nice question, and this could have been written through examples, through diagrams and maps. Yes, Mohit, correct. There is a need for gender-sensitive regional development. See, when I talk about regional development, there are 5 aspects of regional development. One is regional development in terms of population, education, population health, and control of population. Regional development in terms of basic amenities like water issues. Regional development in terms of agriculture issues. Regional development in terms of managing problems related to housing and sanitation. So all the 3 things are related to gender issues also. Growth of population, education of the girl child, health aspects of the girl population, a very important part of regional development. Water management, drinking water management, a very important part of gender issues because the women are the worst to face the consequence of droughts. They have to walk miles and kilometers together to be able to get some amount of water for the household. So yes, so आपको यही 3 करना था. You have to divide that. Regional development is essentially about population dynamics, population parameters. It's about water issues and also about agriculture. The lot of women issues in agriculture. Women are a very important part of the agricultural economy. They are part of the agricultural processes. We need to have agricultural, asset ownership by the women. Otherwise, women are impacted because of out-migration of the male population, agriculture suffers. And then the housing and sanitation, part of regional development and also part of women issues. Okay, and of course, you can move on to gender issues of security and the rest. So gender issues are a very important part of any regional development, whether tribal or rural area and so on. Very nice question. I like this question, very well framed. These are the questions which I call as the L3 level questions, which are asking you to link across topics, not mechanically writing down the answers. Link the topics and find the commonalities to answer. And explain the theoretical framework and the stages of growth of Rostow's model. I think it's a straight question. Okay, how it is industrialization based, how development is about urbanization, development about private sector. So there's a theoretical framework and stages. Okay, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and 5 up to the stage of mass consumption. Okay, so I think all the 5 questions were doable. No surprise element in terms of a new topic or new term. Now, question number 6. Urbanization process is particularly pronounced in Asia and Africa, where too many urban residents grapple with extreme poverty, exclusion, vulnerability, and marginalization. Discuss. I don't know if you guys remember or not. Some of you were in the class. We talked about how urbanization is not about improvement in quality of life. Does anybody know what urbanization means? This is a question I ask repeatedly. Do you know what's the meaning of urbanization? Anybody? When I say urbanization is more, what does it mean? What does it mean? It basically means the people living in urban area is more. Urbanization is not about quality of life. Urbanization is not about having better urban. It's about how many people live in urban areas. So in Asian Africa, which have lot of inequalities, lot of disparities, there's a lot of out-migration from rural areas into urban areas. So high urbanization for Asian Africa basically means there are more and more people living in urban areas because of rural to urban migrations. So high urbanization of India, high urbanization of Africa essentially is crowding of urban areas, high urban housing shortages, high urban congestion, the growth of slums, the problems related to racial and cultural differences. That is why you'll have more and more exclusion, more poverty, and also you'll have more and more of vulnerability to conflicts, vulnerability because of economic distress. So this question says the urbanization which is in African Asia is actually a bad way of urbanization. For India, we call this as dysfunctional urbanization that makes more people living in urban areas more vulnerable, vulnerable to conflicts, vulnerable to loss of jobs, vulnerable because they're illegal migrants, vulnerable because they have racial differences, vulnerable because they are among the most, convenient targets for any type of rights. Okay, and because they are migrants, they are easily marginalized, they are easily ignored. Okay, so good question. Explain how the physical view of geographical space has impacted the form of spatial analysis. This was a tough question. अगर समझ में आ गया तो fine. Otherwise, maybe some of you would have. This is a question partly from geographical thought. What's the meaning of physical view of geographical space? Physical view means when I look at geographical space in terms of a location on the ground. We look at geographical space in terms of coordinates where something exists physically. Okay, and non-physical space is a location which is a mental space, a location which is in the economic space, a location which is in the perceptual space. So if I understand geographical space only as a physical space, then we are ignoring cognition, then we are ignoring technology, we are ignoring economic aspects of how things integrate. So a physical view of geographical space, this was largely the older geography, where geography was seen in terms of the physical surface, in terms of actual location on the ground. But when geography expands to include cultural aspects, geography includes the economic aspects, geography includes perceptual aspects, then geography changes. So yes, the physical view, so 4 points here. The physical view of geographical space is a very narrow interpretation of geographical space. The physical view of geographical space, it is only about the interactions on the surface. It does not talk about cultural aspects or economic aspects. So any model which is based on physical space or physical view, it will ignore how decisions are made, not always in terms of physical space, but also in terms of perceptions, also in terms of the cultural preferences. And now we have the internet. Think of remote working and your Zoom as one of the examples of a non-physical space. Or even the growth pole model was an economic space. So physical view of geographical space is limited. Physical view of geographical space does not include all dimensions of culture. Therefore, physical view of geographical space is a poor model in decision-making process. And physical view also is not a good model for planning and development of an area. Not so much Varenius and Kant, Mudit. You have to bring in fact, Varenius talked largely about the physical space. He was not happy studying the cultural aspects of geography. Although Kant was more inclusive, this topic is more from the behavioral aspects and the cultural aspects of geography. So a tough question, but an interesting one. If you understood this, fine. And the third one was, I think, a straight question, a heartland theory, and it's a reference in contemporary geopolitics. The conflict of Ukraine, the Central Asian conflicts, China's BRI model, okay, the emergence of Russia as a power also is an example of an heartland theory, and how the old Cold War is getting revived. Today what you see as the Ukraine war, or you see as Middle East war, is partly also one type of your Cold War getting, a Cold War is again playing out, and the heartland theory included the concept of Midland Basin. So it's a very good question, and this was part of test series. So I think question number 6 was a good question to answer. Okay, you could have chosen this, although B was a bit tricky one. Okay, let's move on to question number 7 now. Basis of Whittlesey's classification. So I always tell the students in the class that if they ask you a complete a theory of Whittlesey, don't attempt that. But here they are asking you only about the basis. What the basis of Whittlesey's classification? The basis is, okay, the crop and non-crop combinations. The basis is extensive land use or intensive land use. The basis is degree of commercialization. The basis is degree of mechanization, and also about the infrastructure or the ensemble infrastructure. So these are the 5, and these 5 are called as functioning forms. Functioning forms in agriculture classification. So Whittlesey's classification is far more holistic, not simply a classification that is based on type of crops grown, or based on productivity alone, or in terms of crop combination alone. It's a holistic one. It talks about all aspects of agriculture, from the crops grown, the type of intensity of land use, the degree of mechanization, the degree of commercialization, and also what type of farm infrastructure. The 9 to 10 types of, 11 types of agriculture forms that we have. Okay, a good question. This could have been actually attempted. Now, question number 7, what is transnationalism? This is a new concept where you may live in Canada and you have feelings for India. You live in the US and you have feelings for China. You are living in maybe in Germany, but your allegiance partly lies with Turkey because of migrants. So transnationalism is that feeling for the source regions from where the migrants have come. So, lot of migrants are in Dubai and Middle East, but they've got strong feelings and roots with the homeland, India. Okay, and transnationalism is the basis of diaspora and their role in development economics or development strategies. So if we can connect with the diaspora across Africa, across Americas. Okay, so this is actually more of a GS question, but you had to write from the perspective of geography, the migration trends, and how there are cultural links. So all the investment that comes from the migrants, the type of cultural soft power India wants to become, the type of lobbying advantage India has or any country has with it because of its diaspora. The question was on those lines. And assess the criteria required for selecting regions for development planning. This is again a question repeated. In last year, they had a question on planning regions. So what are the considerations for demarcating a planning region? The region should not be very large, should not be very small. The region must have resources as far as possible. The region must be culturally a bit more integrated for internal cohesion. There must be a strong nodal center that holds the region together, and the boundaries must be properly demarcated. So I think it's a good question to answer. It's a straight question, in fact. So I think question number 7 would have been a better question to answer. So if you had attempted question number 3, you could have attempted question number 2 and question number 7. Your problem was done. Because I think my choice would have been question number 7. Question number 8, let's have a look. Which one, Satyam? Which one are you referring to? What do you mean by the second part? Second part of what one? The transnationalism. Tell us how transnationalism has been an important aspect in the recent times. How it can be leveraged. What can India do to use the advantage of diaspora in recent times? And why diaspora is so important? Okay, why diaspora is so important? It's important because of lobbying power. The diaspora has investment capacity. The diaspora play a very important role in geopolitics. The diaspora is part of our cultural power. So इसी से लिखोगे आप. And why it has multiplied is because of the sheer numbers. The number of Indians that we have has increased. Technology has enabled more and more interaction. India's ambition to influence has also has increased in recent times. That's why the transnationalism as an important sentiment has multiplied. Okay? So yes, I think you're right. This is a very important word. Why it has multiplied. Refugee is not the best one. Diaspora, we don't talk in terms of refugees. Okay, question number 8. Question number 8. What is complementary region and hierarchy of settlement? Different types of regions of crystalline. So type of complementary areas are essentially the 3 K factors. The 3 K factors, the complementary regions K equal to 3, the complementary regions, how they are arranged K equal to 4, and in terms of K equal to 7. I don't know if you understand this or not, Goswami. Goswami, the question is not asking you the advantage, is asking you why it has multiplied. Tell us why the power of diaspora has multiplied. Question is there. It's not asking you about the advantage or disadvantage of the diaspora. I think you're missing the core point of the question. अवनीश, ये YouTube क्यों कट गया, डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया? देखो आकर। YouTube डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया। दोबारा लगा सकते हो?
यूट्यूब चल रहा है?
मुझे दिखाई क्यों नहीं दे रहा? मुझे दिखाओ।
नहीं, कमेंट नहीं दिख रहा ना।
स्क्रीन नहीं दिखाई दे रहा। If all of you can hear me, somehow I have got disconnected from the YouTube. Just give me a.
कनेक्ट नहीं है सर, दिख रहा है।
मुझे नहीं दिख रहा ना, मुझे दिखाओ, फिर मैं कैसे इंटरेक्ट करूंगा? व्यू करो, नहीं।
सर को यूट्यूब नहीं दिख पा रहा ना, कट गया सर इशू। वो जो क्लिप होता है ना वहाँ पे।
व्यू कर दो ना, वो नहीं, ये वाला। हाँ, व्यू करो। हाँ,
सर
कैन यू ऑल सी मी नाउ?
कट गया सर इशू। वो जो क्लिप होता है ना वहाँ पे।
व्यू कर दो ना, वो नहीं, ये वाला। हाँ, व्यू करो। वॉल्यूम बंद कर दो इसका। Just give me a few minutes. Can you all see me now?
कट गया सर इशू। वो जो
Am I audible to all of you?
म्यूजिक ठीक है ना? नहीं होगा।
Okay, fine. I somehow I got disconnected from the whole system. No worries. If you all can hear me, fine. I'll continue then. ऐसा क्यों दिख रहा है ये? तो ठीक है।
स्टूडेंट पर सब ठीक है, बस यहाँ से मिनिमाइज हो गया, कट गया इसकी।
अच्छा ठीक है, फाइन। Okay, let's start off then. So I think I've got the essence of this question, complementary area regions. Now, analyze the spatial challenges and emerging patterns of semiconductor manufacturing in the world. This question somehow I did not anticipate in optional paper. Although this question we have, we planned for the GS paper. The GS paper, we have discussed this. So currently semiconductors are in 4 countries: Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, China, and the US. These are the main countries of semiconductors. And of this, Taiwan leads, and to some extent even South Korea and Japan lead. But then there are spatial changes happening, where more and more semiconductor industries are moving toward the US. One. Number two, there is an attempt to move semiconductor industries to India also, so that there can be some type of buffer against the Chinese threat in Taiwan. And third is, even Israel has lot of interests. Yes, Israel has interest, and also in Singapore, you are right. So I was asking us, analyze the change. And analyze the change, analyze as in, this word analyze always means why. Why the change? So there are three reasons for changes. One reason is that there are reasons because of fear of disruptions related to Taiwan-China future war. The lot of Chinese dominance. The Chinese dominance, Chinese hegemony, China's impact on Taiwan is one reason why there is shift. Second is, linked to this is, the US is trying to secure semiconductor in its own country so that it can control the semiconductors, it can control the manufacturing and supply. And third is, there is growing ambition of lot of other countries, because semiconductor industry is the industry of the future. Okay, it has the capability of impacting the future's technology landscape of the world. So one is China's threat and China's hegemony, they want to compromise. US wants to secure itself. And third is ambitions of other countries like India, Singapore and Israel, who want a share of semiconductor industries. इसी पे आपको expand करना था कि why there is a changing pattern in semiconductor. Yes, Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing companies, TSMC is a very big brand. So is NVIDIA. So is certain companies like Samsung in Korea. Yeah. So we have, I think, set up, Dholavira has a semiconductor industry. Then Sanand in Gujarat has one. And there's one center in Assam also. Okay, these three are India's initiative for semiconductors. No, don't bother so much, Rutuja. Not every question needs that. But then the moment it says spatial changes, so you focus on how shift of location happens. Okay, semiconductor industry is not so much based on raw material supply, although it does require a lot of silicon. Okay, but it's mostly based on labor, it is based on technology, and it's based on investments. So the location factors you can discuss. And in recent times, semiconductors, the main reason is it's a political decision, not so much in terms of raw material. So that can bring the geographical dimension into your answer. Yeah, fine. Okay, fine. Let's move on. And the last question, in developed countries, migration rather than fertility will be the main driver of population dynamics. Again, a very good question. That cities will grow and developing countries will grow because of migration. The TFR is 1.8, 1.5, 1.6. They will have labor shortages. They are vanishing society in some ways. So more and more people will come in because of migration. And it's very unlikely that the growth rate patterns of the developed countries will change. The preference for children or the preference for marriage, the preference for having large families will not be the priority in most of developed countries. Examine the statement. Examine the statement. Yes, this looks to be correct at least for next couple of decades. But eventually, the developed countries may not have a very, very migration favorable policy either. So if they do not have favorable policy for migration, then probably they will not grow as much either way. They'll start shrinking. Japan is shrinking. Countries like the Scandinavian countries are shrinking. Germany has a negative growth rate. So the prospect of growth is only by migration. However, we're not very sure if all countries will have a pro-migration policy. Examine, the question says, examine the statement. Okay, tell us if this statement is right or not. Tell us if the statement is the right assessment of the today's population dynamics or not. The answer is yes. Okay. The fact is, the developed countries, the fertility will not change much. It's a fact. Why? 4 reasons. Why? Because the family as institution has declined. 1, number 2. Okay. TFR is not going to increase because of urban living. Number 3, it is the change of social attitude which has happened. And number 4, there is very less number of young population also. These countries have a large aging populations. So yes, the fertility will not be a factor in the growth. But will migration be a factor? Yes, provided they have a favorable policy for population migration. Otherwise, they will have shrinking population size. Okay, so that's the answer. So I think question number 8 was also a good question to answer, provided you could write something on semiconductors. I personally would have attempted question number 8. It's a pretty good question to write on. Okay, so that's paper 1. My assessment is that the paper was relatively on the easier side. Some of you might have faced a time crunch because too much of writing to be done. Otherwise, I think it was a good paper to score on. Okay, let's move on towards paper 2. Let's move on towards paper 2 now. So paper 2, yeah, I'm shifting towards paper 2 now. Can you all see me? Yeah? Okay. Okay, fine. Let's discuss paper 2 now quickly. So I think mapping part was definitely not a very, very easy paper. Goa could have been marked. Goa is one of the centers of iron ore mining. Is part of the Chotanagpur region, Goa. Raidak River is a very small river, a tributary of Brahmaputra, which in recent times had floods and Bengal was impacted. Ekta Nagar, Chandanwadi, Babina, Tatipaka. These 4, I doubt if you have known. Lundkaransar is a saltwater lake in Bikaner. Okay, this could have been marked. Goa, if you know, fine. Along airport was in news recent times because it was made functional and it was a defense site which was becoming a civil airport also. So Arunachal Pradesh. And Karaikal you should have marked, Panna you should have marked. So I think 4 entries could have been marked. But yes, the mapping, I agree, was on the difficult side. Okay, it was difficult side. So if I was marking, I would have marked 4 at least. Okay. Let's come to the remaining. All the other questions, compulsory questions, various explanations in the formation of Shivalik. There are 3 explanations for Shivaliks. One is Shivaliks as uplifted marine sediments, extensions of Middle Himalayas. Shivaliks as upliftment of the old Indo-Brahm river Levai. There was a river Levai, a river embankment of hypothetical Indo-Brahm river, and that got uplifted was one theory. And the third theory is that the Shivalik is upliftment of the old alluvial fans of the Himalayan rivers. So the old alluvial fans of Himalayan rivers is the most acceptable. It was the old floodplain along the foothills which got up, and that's why Shivaliks has boulders, large rocks, conglomerates. It has a lot of unconsolidated clay content also getting uplifted. So there is a theory of marine sediments, extends from Middle Himalayas. This theory is wrong theory because the Shivalik sediments are not marine in origin. Shivalik sediments are actually more fluvial in origin. So that's one. Yes, the Indo-Brahm Levai theory bhi galat hai because Indo-Brahm river is now proven to be hypothetical. It is not the more important one. And the third one, upliftment foothills, the uplifted alluvial fan is the more accepted one. So you have read that one. Now, vulture conservation, maybe we have not studied, but I think if you can write something on conservation and breeding centers, okay, so I think it's a generic one. It need not only be about vulture. Any wildlife conservation, what is the need of conservation and breeding centers? Conservation so that the existing numbers do not decline, conservation so that the existing numbers are maintained and the habitat is maintained, and breeding centers so that we can have more of the species in the captivity, more of the species which are born in captivity, that will help the numbers not to reduce. Okay, so this is the more component. So you have to add a generic one, but vulture may have troubled us. And why is North Indian states geopolitically sensitive and strategically important? This answer should have started with the location of the Northeast. Northeast region has boundaries with Bhutan, with China, with Myanmar, and also it has a boundary with Bangladesh. So 4 countries are in the boundaries. That makes it very, very important strategically. It's also important strategically because it is the gateway of India to the Southeast Asia. It is also strategic because it has a lot of resources, particularly gas resources and oil resources. And strategic also because this area has the capacity to develop into an important counter to China. This part of India has a good access towards China, so it's important strategically. Okay, and why it is sensitive? Because of the cultural diversity, the tribal conflicts, because of its proximity with the golden triangle that we have of Thailand, Laos, and Myanmar. It is also sensitive because China's interest in Arunachal Pradesh. It's also sensitive because it is a bit cut off from the rest of India. This is a prorrupt region. There is a cultural factor, there is a location factor, there is a resource factor, a factor related to smuggling, related to arms smuggling also. Okay, so this was a very good question written in terms of geography also. Okay? Now let's come down to the other questions. I think question number 2 was the tricky question. You could have answered this. The first question was easy. Institutional factors essentially means the factors related to land reforms. How is land reforms important aspect of agricultural prosperity? ये question बार-बार repeat हो रहा है. Okay, institutional factor is repeated continuously. Okay, so you can handle this one. Indian space policy. This question we have already asked. Okay, I'll show you the mapping that we have done. In paper 1, we got all questions except 2 or 3 questions we are not prepared. The same thing in paper 2 also. Barring 4-5 questions, all other questions we had discussed as a part of the test series or our revision in our MSP. Okay, so this was, we have done this. How will India's space policy benefit India's socio-economic development and security of India? So space policy, launching the satellites of others, space policy, GIS and mineral mapping, space policy in terms of security, spies, space policy, the remote sensing satellites for weather forecasting. So all 4 factors together: weather forecasting, ocean sat, resources, GIS. It's part of helping other countries launch. It can be a very important monetizable part of India's space program, and of course the communication aspects. Okay, this is why it will benefit socio-economic, and socio-economic also includes how the space policy will encourage a remote education. It will encourage a remote medicine. It will help us in a better communication, disaster management. ये वाला question था आपका. Okay, this was also a good question. The process of formation of conurbations in India and describe their problems. So conurbation in India is essentially the expansion of cities along major agricultural routes, the highway routes, the expansion of conurbation in terms of the freight corridor, golden quadrilateral, the major highways, the major expressways. The formation of conurbation has been possible because of more and more communication linkage through roads and highways and freight corridors and railways. So explain that. The best example of this can be Delhi-Mumbai corridor, how that can become a conurbation and what are the problems. I remember I have discussed this question more from the perspective of what is the advantage of the freight corridor. The problems essentially are related to haphazard expansion. Problem can be related to issues of not linking other smaller towns in the vicinity. The problems can be quality of connectivity and the maintenance. The problems can be related to problems of concentration of conurbations in one areas, which can lead to more and more inequalities. Okay, so conurbations will link the urban areas. The rural areas might get ignored. So यही आपके चार problems हैं. Okay, one is economic inequality will increase. Haphazard expansion can have a problem. Problems related to quality of conurbation linkages. And the fourth is the trans movement of labor, material and goods without unified policy of taxation can also be an issue. Okay, yeah, haphazard expansion includes slums and poverty. Okay, so that's question number 2. Question number 3. I think question number 3 is the best question to answer. It's asking about the problems of regional disparities. Very, very straight. Every year you'll have one question on regional disparity, definitely. What is the disparity and what is the implication? Disparity, urban-rural disparity. There is regional disparity in northeast, hill areas, okay, island regions disparity, disparity in terms of mega cities and the other towns and villages. Okay, disparity in terms of industrial centers vis-a-vis rural centers. Okay, so what are the types there? Patterns kya hai? Implications, unequal development, implications, rural to urban migration, implications also includes how agriculture gets ignored and ultimately is a disincentive, and how we can manage that in terms of challenges to deal with it. I think it's a straight question, shouldn't have been a problem. Discuss the variations in the nature of glaciers in India and the emerging issues. This I was expecting because of the GLOF problem of Sikkim. And plus, we have problems of receding glaciers in parts of Himachal Pradesh and Uttaranchal. So what are the variations in glaciers? There are two variations. One is that the Karakoram glaciers, they have not changed much. It's called as the Karakoram anomaly bhi bolte hain isko. Karakoram glaciers have not changed much. Despite global warming, despite problems of heat waves, problems with precipitation changes, Karakoram glaciers have not receded much. It's called as the Karakoram anomaly. This I have discussed in the class, okay, in one of the MSP questions I remember. Okay, and there are other glaciers which are shrinking rapidly. So the Sikkim Himalayas glaciers are shrinking. The Himalayas of Uttaranchal are shrinking. The Himalayan glaciers of Himachal Pradesh are shrinking. Gangotri is shrinking. Pindari is shrinking. Milam glacier is shrinking. So two types of changes and the consequences. Yes. Hi, Adi. Yes. So, do some of you remember this question? When I discussed that glaciers of Karakoram don't change. Okay, I hope some of you remember the discussion that we had in one of the sessions, in the MSP sessions, MSP and also in the enrichment. It's called as the Karakoram anomaly. Okay. Anyway, this is that. And the problems issues are flooding, the problems are GLOF, the problems are landslides, the problems are change in the downstream hydrology. Okay, and whatever ecological issues linked to those. Tourism is again a question every year now. Okay, tourism. How is tourism, a very important part of the local development? This again is a state question. So question number 3 was a good question to attempt if you wanted to attempt. Okay. Question number 4. Question number 4. Migration is a reflection of regional disparity. What socioeconomic demographic consequences are experienced at the place of origin and destination? It's a state question, L1 question. Okay, Ravenstein's model. Migration is because of commercial factors. Migration is more towards the urban centers. Adi, we are starting on Monday. Tomorrow we are starting. Okay, and the consequences of origin, and I don't think I'm going to discuss this straight question. You should have answered this one. In spite of tribal areas development programs in India, tribal areas still lag behind. This is a very interesting question. Okay, I didn't anticipate this question, although we talk about tribal issues, tribal problems, tribal development. But idea that the tribal areas still backward regions, why is that? I could see this as 4 reasons. One is, lot of tribal areas are not geographically connected or economically integrated. That's one. Second is, most of tribal areas do not have as much of autonomy for the development. Many tribal areas are resource regions. Many tribal areas are exploited, okay, because of the forests, because of mineral resources. That's second. Third reason is the tribal programs that we have, because tribal areas are conflict regions also. So be it northeastern India, be it central Indian regions, so there also we have problems. And lot of tribal areas are geopolitically sensitive, like think of Andaman Nicobar Islands. They're geopolitically sensitive. So in those areas, developing those too much again becomes a problem. And then you can write about lack of sincerity, political will, lack of implementation of PESA, a lot of problems of tribal rights issues. उसके बाद आप लिख सकते हो. ठीक है, so I think, yes, Abhay, yes, migration has been a popular question over the years. Okay. So that's tribal area. Interesting question. I didn't anticipate on those lines. Then water scarcity, again, state question, water scarcity. Water scarcity, an important cause of disputes and conflicts in India. So water scarcity के क्या-क्या conflicts हैं? One conflict is there are caste conflicts because of water issues. There are states inter-water, okay, sharing of rivers, that's an issue. Second, conflicts related to, irrigation systems, where we have the conflict between industrial usage versus the conflict of the agriculture usage. Okay, and water is also an issue where we have conflicts wherever we have droughts. Okay, and suggests the innovative methods. Innovative methods mein, you can talk about watershed harvesting, innovative methods, if you know some techniques like traditional methods of Johars. Ladakh has this ice tower, ice mountain concept in management. And innovative concept also includes some bit of water pricing strategies. Yeah, so 3 conflicts and 2-3 innovative solutions. You can mention few lines on river linking projects also, but that is not the most important innovative one. Most important innovative is rainwater harvesting, traditional methods of water management, and third is your watershed development approach. So question number 4 was also a good question to answer. Yes, Satyam, correct. Come to question number 5 now. How are geographical factors influencing high annual rainfall in certain parts of India? Geographical factors are, number 1, the orientation of the mountains. Geographical factor will be the alignment of the winds. Geographical factor also includes the distance from the sea. There are 3 geographical factors: alignment of mountains. Okay. Number 2 is alignment of mountain, height of mountains on the path. Number 2 is, I said, the orientation and the alignment of the winds. Are they parallel to the coast? Are they across? Okay, that's one. And third is distance from the sea. The 3 geographical factors influencing rainfall. And then you can talk about examples for each one of them. Aravallis, alignment along Bay of Bengal branch, Himalayan, the Meghalayan plateau, Bay of Bengal, the Arabian Sea impacted by Western Ghats, the coastal regions alignment of the Tamil Nadu coast, okay, because of which we have the northeastern monsoons. The geographical factors can also include the role of ITCZ and also the role of the jet streams. ये भी part होगा. ITCZ, its position is geographical factor. The jet streams, their position is the geographical factors. Okay, the mountain is the geographic factor. The wind orientation and the distance from the sea. It's a good question. It's a good question, yes, with examples. Indian monsoons belong to, Indian population belong to large number of races. Discuss the spatial patterns. Very nice. Give us a map of the races of India and why are the races where they are? Why Sino-Tibetan race along the Himalayas? Why do we have Dravidian races towards the south? Why do we have Indo-Aryans in the north and northeast? Okay. Why do we have Negritos in the island regions? Okay. So isolation factor, proximity factor, conflict as a factor. Okay. So what are the trick question was, discuss the pattern. Okay, tell us why are the tribes where they are? Or why are the races where they are? Okay. Yes, you could talk about out of Africa hypothesis and how Negritos are found in the farthest locations. Okay. Basically, all the distribution is related to migration and the conflict strings to that. Okay, it's a good question. Examine the transitional role of technology in Indian agriculture sector. How is technology helping in agriculture sector's transformation? Okay, transformation from less mechanized to more mechanized, transformation from subsistence towards commercialization, transformation from a single crop to multiple crops. Transformation also includes how barren fallow lands is converted into more and more crop-based usage. Yeah. So these are the four, five. So transitional role kya hai? Transition role 1 is from subsistence agriculture, it is making commercial agriculture possible. Okay, from subsistence. Second is from traditional methods, the shift towards the modern mechanized methods. The transition role implies the choice of crops grown. Okay, what type of crops are grown and the land use patterns. Land is being used throughout the year because we have more and more drought resistant crops. Because we have good technologies in harvesting and sowing, we're able to do multiple cropping. Technology, तो क्या technology है? Irrigation technology है, seeds का technology है. We also have monsoon forecasting technologies. We also have machines. Okay, so these are technologies. One irrigation technology, then we have seeds in technology aspects. We have technology in terms of how are we forecasting droughts and satellites, and machines also, and technology also includes the food processing units, ये भी technology है. So these are the 5 technologies and how they're changing India's agriculture from subsistence towards commercialization, from traditional systems towards mechanized and modern ones. The cropping patterns have changed, land fallowing is being reduced, cropping intensity is being increased, cropping productivity is being increased. Okay, so increase in cropping intensity, increase in productivity. All these are part of the changing role of technology. Okay, so you required a presence of mind to try this one. Describe area-specific strategies of development of drought-prone regions. So when you say area-specific strategies, so drought regions को divide करना होगा. There are drought region in the hill areas, there are drought regions in the plateau interiors, and there are drought regions in the rainy regions also. So there are drought regions in Punjab, drought regions in UP, drought regions in dry areas like deserts and plateau interiors, and the droughts of the hill areas. These are the 3-4 areas of the droughts. Hill regions are droughts, deserts are droughts, plateau interiors are droughts, and droughts in the areas of good rainfall. So यहाँ पर droughts का main reason है lack of water management and too much of dependence on monsoon rainfall, and how we have not developed our dryland agriculture properly. The strategies includes, okay, one is desert-based cultivations, second is dryland farming in hill areas and dry regions, second is water management better in the wetter areas. Yes, they are all part of your monsoon mission. Now the government has launched, no? The government has launched the monsoon mission, the Mausam mission that we have. Yes, Mudit, correct. Okay, relationship between seaports and this was an asked question in the test. I repeatedly said this time, ports will be an important question this year, and happy to see how ports will help regional development. Ports, industries, ports will bring in more and more of urbanization. Ports will create jobs. Ports help in better linkages with the hinterland. Ports as growth centers. Ports can also help us access foreign markets and so on. Okay, so this was a good question, okay, anticipated one. So I think the tricky question in this probably was to write about geography. So see, one problem I think you must have had is if you're not reading the question properly. So I doubt if students have read, the question is on geographical factors, not on variations of rainfall. Okay, the question was on discuss the spatial distribution of races. Tell us why are the races where they are, and don't tell me simply, okay, the type of races. So I'm scared that many of them would have listed down the races and their features without discussing why the races are where they are. So that could have been an issue. Same here. Maybe you did not understand the meaning of the word transitional role. Transitional role, what are the technologies involved and what type of transition they are doing. So I think this is something students must have missed. The transition from subsistence towards commercial, okay, transition where more crops are grown, productivity is increased, intensity is increased, we have got more water sensitive crops. Maybe if you miss that, then you are in a problem. Okay. So I think maybe if you understand the questions better, your answers could have been better. Question number 6. Industrial waste is diversified. What are the potential and challenges? So industrial waste is, one is the think of the waste from mining. Industrial waste is also the sludge from industries. Industrial waste, think of atomic waste. Industrial waste, think of heavy metals. Heavy metals. So there are different categories of industrial waste. Industrial waste, we can also talk about arsenic pollution, industrial waste, cadmium pollution, mercury pollution, cobalt pollution. Okay? And then tell us what are the potentials and challenges associated with. The potential largely comes from how we can, industrial waste also includes emissions also. Emissions, the carbon emission, the soot, air pollution. Okay. So pollutions, heavy metals, pollution, arsenic, pollution, emissions, pollution from mining, pollution from industrial sludge, and a special category which is the radioactive atomic energy wale pollutants. You can talk about a very special type of pollution from petrochemical industries. ये कर सकते थे आप. So they are very diversified. This was an important point. They tell us there are lot of variety of waste. So if you have not got the word diversified, then you have a problem. That there are various categories of waste. Okay. And then tell us about potential. Potential largely is around the circular economy. That we can extract the wastes and use it in a different way. Okay. So recycling can be done. We can have reuse systems. So fly ash can be used as bricks. A lot of industrial pollutants can be trapped. Okay, and we can have a scraping of the carbon. Okay, so potential includes that, and the potential that if we reduce the waste, then we will have better water resources, better rivers, we'll have better soil without problems of soil toxicity. And what are the challenges? Challenges essentially is around the compliance with the pollution laws, compliance in terms of waste treatment, compliance in terms of the incentives around using non-carbon, non-fossil fuel based fuels. So challenges are around implementation and compliance, and the potential is around recycling of the waste and reuse for alternate. Okay. This was not an easy one, but the word was diversified. And how is cultural background of states reflected in the attributes of age and sex? Very nice and it's very smartly framed question. How does cultural factor impact population dynamics? So think of patriarchal culture and women sex ratio. Talk about agrarian cultures and women sex ratio. Think of tribal cultures, how it impacts a sex ratio. Then age structures. Okay, how with cultures which are more urbanized, cultures which have better access to health amenities, there we have age composition varies. Okay, so if it is a patriarchal culture, you'll have more child population because of TFR. If it is women empowered cultures, then lesser TFR. Now we are seeing a bulge. Okay, if it's urban culture, we are seeing more and more aging population. If urban culture, we'll see more and more migrants in the bulge of the youth who are the young migrants. Okay, so tell us how culture impacts sex ratios and age structures. Okay, so very nicely framed, interesting thinking, not an easy one, I'll say this is L3 question. This is also L3 question. And discuss the targets of focus interventions of Jal Shakti Abhiyan. A straight question there. Okay. But I think question number 6 was a tough one. It would have been nice if you had not attempted this. Question number 7. India is playing a significant role in world affairs. Examine the stands taken by India in important global and regional summits. तो आपको ना 2-3 summit याद रखना होगा. Okay. What is India's stance in the UN? What is India's stance in the G20 meet जो हुआ? What is India's stance in the SCO? What is India's stance, say, Quad dialogues? So remember 2 or 3 of them. And what is India's stance probably in SAARC? What is India's stand in ASEAN? So this is an important question from IR. If your IR of GS was good, so what is India's stance in G20? That we need to change global governance, that we need to bring in Africa, that we need to talk about agriculture. What is India's stance in UN? That war must be avoided. We want reforms in the UN. We are trying to make the Security Council more democratically representative. What is India's role in SCO? SCO, okay, with China and Pakistan and Iran and Russia. India's stance has been about developing CO as a very important regional grouping in terms of security. Tell us what we have done. What is the stance in ASEAN? ASEAN mein, what does India tell about the South China Sea conflict? In ASEAN, what is India's view on the free trade agreement with ASEAN countries? In ASEAN, the collaboration for regional security. Okay, yes, uthana tha aapko. It was an IR question. You have to touch on 2-3 summits, if not all of them. UN पता होना चाहिए था, G20 में पता होना चाहिए, should have known ASEAN. अगर ये 3 भी होता, would have been fine. Okay. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment devolved functions of finances and functionaries for planning of rural areas in India. Okay. Discuss the major achievements. So 73rd Amendment Act essentially is your Panchayati Raj institutions. You tell us how has Panchayati Raj succeeded in India. And don't just write about PRI, you also talk about PESA. PESA is also the extensions of the PRI institutions. RCEP में कहाँ membership है? Pawan, India has not joined RCEP. Okay. You are leaving the more obvious ones and getting into the more tricky ones. That's your problem. Okay. How do small and fragmented land holdings affect agro? It's a straight question, L1 question. The problem of fragmented land holdings. Okay, and what are steps required? Steps is cooperative farming. Steps is land consolidation. Steps is form FPOs, farmer producer organizations. Okay, to deal with problems of land fragmentation. And this is an L1 question. This is an L3 question, and 7B is an L2 question. Satyam, you don't have to, you must understand geographical perspective means there is a location aspect. Okay. And some questions you need not force the geographical element for sake of forcing. If you can draw a map, if you can show the locations, you can identify geopolitical aspects, okay, that's good enough. Don't bring in determinism and possibilism here. Okay. So question number 8, question number 7 was a doable question. This could have been one attempt. Okay. And question number 8, how morphology of Indian towns be described historically? Very good question. You tell us how the morphology of Indian towns has changed. Morphology of temple towns, morphology of medieval towns, morphology of British towns, morphology of the post-independence. So talk about bazaar model, you can talk about the port models, you can talk about modern sectoral iron grid planning also, and discuss the features of first planned city after independence. The first planned city, you can take up the example of Chandigarh largely. Chandigarh bhi hai or Delhi bhi hai. Delhi is also a good, nice planned one after independence. Lot of duty in Delhi got added. Okay. So what are the features of it? Yes, Priyana, correct. I think this was an L2 question, bordering towards L3, but a good question to answer. Question number 8B, health is an outcome of interaction between physical, cultural and ecological connection. Explain. Yeah, this is an L3 question. How health is an outcome of physical setting, where you live, what type of water you drink, what type of house you live in, what type of climate we have. Okay, that's physical setting. Cultural traits, patriarchy, cultural traits. Okay, some foods are banned, non-veg, vegetarian types. Health aspects, women rights, culture, tribal. Some of the tribes are susceptible to some practices like genital mutilation, and ecological connection. Okay, talk about quality of air, talk about dependence on clean water, dependence on forests. There is an ecological aspect, there is a physical aspect, and how all the three interact with one another. Okay, so health is about all the three together. Your physical, where you live, how you live, in what culture you come from, and whether it is ecologically properly clean and non-polluted environment or not. Okay, so this is an L3 question. Okay, health is not a consequence of medicines. Health is not a consequence of genetic traits alone. Okay. And the last one is, what are the major regional rapid transport systems developed in India? How are urban problems being addressed by them? The major regional rapid transport systems are, one are the expressways, second are the bus corridors, the third are the metro connectivity. These are the three regional rapid transit systems in India: metro connectivity, bus corridors and expressways. And how are urban problems addressed by them? Okay, so how they address problems of congestion, how they address problems of pollution, how they address problems related to lack of green space. So the moment I add transport networks, lot of land gets freed up for open areas, something like the TOD model. Okay, so how the pollution reduces because of less vehicles on the road. There is less congestion because people can move very easily. There can be more and more dispersal. And third is, lot of land is available for lot of ecological management of the region. A typical part of the transit-oriented development. So I think question number 8 was the toughest one. This should not have been attempted. All the three questions are L3 level of question number 8. So my personal choice would have been, if you had attempted question number 7, you could have attempted question number 4 and question number 3. Even question number 2 was a good one. But the best question was question number 3, 4 and 7, according to me. Okay, guys, I've discussed all the questions of paper 1 and paper 2. Shortly, we will write your answers and share also. And I'm happy to say, lot of questions we have been able to get in our test series. In paper 2, barring 2-3 questions, we got all the other, and the same for paper 1 also. So I always say that if you are able to focus on a few resources, if you can focus on good questions and writing practice, your purpose is served. Okay, you don't have to go around, and I can assure you the same has also been for GS. For GS, almost in paper 3, we got 18 questions out of 20 from our test series. In paper 1 and paper 2, we got about 8 to 9 questions out of 20. My guess, Abhay, paper 2 will have good marks, because many will write very generic answers, but those who have done good ones, they can score really well. Applied questions get a lot of good marks. So paper 2, the range will be very high. Those getting good marks will get very good marks, and those who get poor marks will get very, very poor marks. The range will be high in paper 2. But paper 1, I think it will be high marks and the range will be lesser. So paper 2 is the deciding question paper for geography. That's my assessment. Let's see. Okay, and I request all those who have been part of our test series, please meet me tomorrow if you can at 10 o'clock. Okay, I'll be happy to connect with you, to talk to you. Okay, we'll have some planning that we can have as a part. And if you want the answers, let us know. We'll share the answers with all of you. Okay, thank you so much. My wishes to all of you. All the best for next year's examination. And all those who have been preparing for this year, let's hope for the best. You all worked hard. I hope you all will be able to qualify and take your ambitions or take your efforts closer to the ambitions. Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Pavan, Satyam, Akhilesh, okay, Abhay, all of you. Thank you so much. Ganesh, thank you. Bye-bye, all of you. Good night. Good night.